Right, so it's time for part 2 of my series looking at basic British Army reenacting kit for Northwest Europe. And again, as was the theme in the previous video, looking at uniform, headdress and boots, this is looking at web equipment, and we're going to be looking at components that are the most versatile in terms of time period they were in use. Starting at the front here, well, obviously the web equipment we're looking at is the 1937 pattern web equipment. This was the standard for the majority of the army at the start of the war, and would be used all the way through, of course, and into the 1970s by some. But that's a story for another day. At the front here, we have Mark II pouches. These aren't the earliest pouches, but they're probably the ones that are going to be easiest to find and yet will carry you through the longest period of the war. I have done a video on basic pouches, which gives you the timeline of their development, but Mark II pouches were in use from around the middle of 1940 right the way through to the end of the war. So these will carry you right the way through, and they're not hard to find. Mark IIs are not difficult to find. You can still pick them up at shows relatively cheaply. If you're absolutely mad, you can pay the ridiculous prices that's being asked on eBay, but as I say, I wouldn't advise that. You can find them elsewhere in good condition and still usable. If you look after them, they're hard wearing, they'll last a long time. Original web equipment is generally preferable, I would say, to any reproduction. There are some small caveats to that which will come up in later videos, but this is a full original set of basic 1937 pattern, minus the haversack, which we'll look at briefly. I've just got it assembled here so you can see all the details. Braces, you'll need two. One with the loop on, which we'll have a look at the back. Post-war they were manufactured without that. The best ones to look for are this example here with the reduction woven, where reduction woven neck down from the 2 to the 1 inch strap. Later in the, well, fairly early on even, these were being manufactured with 2 pieces stitched together by companies who couldn't do the reduction woven method that was used by MECO, and MW2 used as well, I think. So purely from a versatility point of view and length of time in use, these are best, the reduction woven, but other varieties are available. So it might be a case of picking up what you can to start with. But these are definitely the best ones to get if you can find them, with the reduction woven finish. So it just necks down neatly from the 2 inch into the 1 inch strap there. Obviously all brass fittings is best because again, it's more flexible. Later in the war, Sheridized steel and things would be used, and obviously post-war blackened for the longest, to cover the longest time period. With the one set of web equipment, you want brass fittings. Moving down to the belt, as you can see, all the fittings here are brass. Slider needs moving in a bit, that's not very smart. There we go. Sliders and everything are brass there. Standard 1937 pattern web belt, not hard to find. Getting a little bit more pricey now for nice examples, but not hard to find. If we bring this around this side here, you see the Bayonet Frog, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in a minute or two, because this is an item you're going to have to make a bit of a decision based upon what period of the war you're doing. I have done a video detailing this, but we'll talk about it very briefly in this video as well. Moving right round to the back, you can see the back of the setup here, and this, the left hand strap, as it comes over at the front, coming to the right buckle on the back of the belt, has the loop on it. So you can see in there's a webbing loop that the other brace passes through, stitched to the back of this strap, and that's necessary for wartime, for this period of the war, certainly. I forget when exactly that changed off the top of my head, but that's what to look out for. So you have a left and a right-handed brace. On the right hip, we have the water bottle, and again, this is an early war example, or an example suitable for early war, in the skeleton carrier, what's colloquially known as the skeleton carrier. Again, the most versatile. The sleeve carrier would come in slightly after, so this is the most versatile type of carrier to get for your water bottle. Again, if you are just doing late war, there's nothing stopping you getting the others, but the advice I'm providing here is to try and help you be flexible in your reenacting, because you may find you want to do something earlier war or mid-war as opposed to just late war, and this is more versatile from that point of view. Bottles change a bit, and we'll have a brief talk about that a little bit more in just a minute. But that's the basic web equipment here. I'll just bring the haversack in now and put that on, because it's another bit of basic kit you're going to want to look to get, because battle order includes the haversack, and that's generally what was worn. We might talk about packs in a later video, looking at stuff beyond the very basics, but battle order tended to be the web equipment that was worn, and obviously I'll bring the haversack in now and show you the details of that. Okay, so we now have the haversack on the back, and we'll have a look at the details of that in just a moment. First of all, looking at the L straps, they come down and hook onto the ammunition pouches at the front here, the basic pouches, to help support them when the web equipment's being worn in battle order. You can see these L straps here, the wide section here again necks down in the reduction woven style to the hooks the 1-inch strap leading down to the hooks. This again is the preferable design of these L straps to pick up if you can, because it's just that bit more versatile. Not absolutely essential if you're focusing on late war, but this just means if you want to then start doing early war, if you've got these, you can do right the way to the start of the war with this type. Much as the other designs were introduced quite early on. As I've already said, if you refer to Khaki Web, there's information on when those changes came about to the minutiae of the design. You can see the L straps attach onto the haversack here with the buckles similar to those used on the 1908 Web equipment, and then down here the smaller straps come down to buckles on the bottom of the haversack. It's the 1937 pattern haversack. It's been worn quite low on the back here because this is set up for me, not the mannequin, and the mannequin and I are slightly different sizes. I haven't adjusted it for the mannequin because obviously I want to be able to wear it again without having to mess around with it. But this nevertheless shows you all the details you need to see. Brass fittings again on all of this. Later in the war there would be economies made in that, but getting one that's this with all the brass fittings and everything again makes it more versatile. It's the standard 1937 pattern haversack. These again can still be picked up relatively cheaply if you know where to look and at shows and things. On eBay they're quite expensive, but it depends on the listing. You can sometimes get them for a bargain. It depends if you're looking for ones with clear date stamps and things as well. But if you buy original, it's going to remain a collectible, so you're not going to lose money on it. And it's definitely preferable to buying reproduction, as I've said through most of this. As I said earlier in the video, we'll just look at the details now of water bottles. The one in the carrier here is a Mark 6, which is in the blue enamel with a thick felt cover on it. This here is the Mark 7. The Mark 7 was introduced in late 1939, so this one could easily be substituted for this one. I'm just showing a difference here of very early war. These are difficult to find or more difficult to reproduce using later blue enamel water bottles, and the green ones turn up more commonly. So you can definitely pick up one of these Mark 7s and it will carry you through 1940 right the way through to the end of the war really. Introduced very late 1939, so it's going to be seen being issued as a replacement for maybe kit lost in France or to new recruits from that time on. But stocks of these would be used up, so you need to use your logic there on what time period you're representing. Certainly late war, you're going to see these, the green enamelled Mark 7. And looking again, the Bayonet Frog. This, of course, is the standard 1937 pattern Bayonet Frog, designed to take the 1907 sword bayonet for the rifle number 1 Mark III. When the number 4 is introduced, there's a problem because the spike bayonet doesn't easily fit in these. I have done a video on the various modifications that were made. In summary here, through to 1944, a leather tab was used to attach the number 4 bayonet to this design of frog, so there's no need to get a different frog, you just need to get the little leather tab. After that, after mid-44 I think it was, a buttonhole was let into the top loop of this frog, so modified, and the number 4 bayonet was then attached that way. I've done a whole video on this. I'll put a card up in the corner of the video for the details of that there, which gives more detail on the changes and when they happened. So that's a choice you're going to have to make depending on what period of the war you're using and consequently what weapon you're using. The frog will vary somewhat, or the way of attaching the bayonet will vary somewhat depending on the year. Okay, so the second part of the video we're going to be looking at helmets, and you're going to want to get one of these really from a versatility point of view, a Mark II. The Mark III helmet was of course issued to some troops. You're going to have to do some research on whether the troops you wish to represent were wearing the Mark III. Not everyone was. Many troops continued to wear the Mark II right through the end of the war. So the most versatile helmet to get is the Mark II. Get one that externally at least looks like an early Mark II. That is to say, the larger screw in the top, and this is actually a reproduction from Soldier of Fortune. So if you buy a shell and you don't have the screw or anything, you can get these screws here, and we'll compare it to an original in a minute. This also has the earlier bails in the helmet there to attach the chin strap, although the liner there is a modern reproduction and is not of an early pattern. Earlier in the war, the head pad would be a round piece riveted on, and this is the later 4-prong padder in the top of the liner there. But externally, it looks like an early helmet. If you wanted to, you could easily modify that. I just haven't. The reason for this is I bought this shell for use. The original liner completely disintegrated, unfortunately, and I wouldn't recommend using original liners if you can avoid it, because they tend to become brittle. And I'll bring an original helmet in now. Here we have an original early war 1938 dated helmet. You can see the larger screw on the top there, the early design of bails there for attaching the chin strap, and the early liner. And this has gone quite dry, the oilcloth in here. You can see the round head pad in there riveted in, and it's dry and brittle. This is a collector's piece, not for wearing really. You can see the date stamp there for interest's sake at the bottom of the rim there. But it's not hard to replicate the external view of this with the larger screw in the top, and you can buy a shell and easily repaint one. If you get a battered old shell, clean it up, put a reproduction liner in it with the screw and a chin strap. You can still pick up original chin straps easily. You have a helmet that externally looks right for early war and is wearable right the way through the war. There's nothing stopping you wearing it right the way through. And again, from a versatility point of view, that's a good thing. As I say, if you wanted to modify the liner to make it look more like an early war liner, you easily could. That's not hard to do. You could simply make a round pad to go in there with the rivets in if you wanted to. Something I may consider doing with this helmet in the future, just in case it's ever seen the other way up, not wearing it. But generally you're going to be wearing it, so the liner, provided the external edge here that you're going to see is correct. That's not as important, obviously. That's really getting to the nitty-gritty of the details. But the larger screw is a visible element of that, and that's an early war feature, which again just makes your helmet more useful from that point of view. So that's a look at the Mark II helmet. So we now have the mannequin in battle order web equipment with the helmet added as well, so we're slowly building up the equipment. The next video will focus on anti-gas equipment, which is another essential bit of kit to have. If you're interested in seeing that and my other future uploads, then please consider subscribing. If you're already subscribed or new to subscribing, make sure you hit the notification button, because that's how you'll be notified when I do upload future videos. If you enjoy this content and you might like to see some photographs and things of the collection and updates and sneak peeks of upcoming videos, then please consider checking out my Facebook page and Instagram, which are both linked to the channel, links to which I will put in the description. And that's it for now. So until next time, bye for now.